doing the exact same thing since 23. Clay does not get enough recognition. Clay is, he's nothing against anyone else, but is good as anyone I've had and is responsible for just as much, if not more, of the game plan than myself. So Clay's a stud.
Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, talking about his offensive coordinator, Clay Kubiak. Clay Kubiak will be interviewed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. When, I have not seen that reported, but he was added to the list last night. We do know that at the very least, the Steelers are interviewing Jeff Hafley today, the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers, Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Rams, and Nate Scheelhaas, the passing game coordinator of the Rams. That's all going down today. And joining us now to get into it on the Fan Hotline, presented by Sullivan Super Service, Pittsburgh's trusted plumbing and HVAC provider for over 50 years, it is our great friend Chris Carter from the Post-Gazette and the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris, I never thought we'd be doing this. I'm not trying to be cute or flippant or anything. I know
what you mean.
I still can't believe it. We don't need to get all caught up in the past, though. We can have our windshield be bigger than our rear view. Of the candidates that the Steelers are reportedly going to interview, which one tickles your fancy the most, man? Do you have a favorite?
I think Chris Shula is one that everyone's looking at and is excited about. I like his, I like the idea of like the legacy. Jeff Hafley, who's supposed to interview today, I like what he's done with what he has in the Packers defense. They were number 6 in scoring last year, number 11 in scoring this year. So I like those guys. I like the defensive minded idea to keep going in that direction makes a lot of sense. I've heard some interesting things about Anthony Weaver and how he leads a room. I liked. I think that the Dolphins didn't have all the talent they wanted on defense, but I liked the way that they at least fought. I remember the start of that Steelers-Dolphins game. They were flying, they were hitting, they were being physical. I
think that was the best tackling half of football I watched this year against the Pittsburgh Steelers or for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chris. Really, seriously. Those guys are putting dudes on the ground.
Yeah, they were flying, they were physical, and they were accountable too in that part. I think they eventually wore off, and that's when the Steelers were able to pour it on them. But so far, honestly, all these names are younger coaches right in the model of where I think the Steelers should be looking right now. And I think that's what the Steelers need to be doing is they need to be looking at the younger coaches who are defensive or offensive minded, but they need to keep going with the thing that they've gotten right the last 3 times, and they need to find a leader of men. I know some people want to find the genius play caller who can like scheme up everything. And listen, if they can get that and a leader of men, that'd be great. But the priority is to find the CEO head coach who can piece things together, who can put guys in the right spots, coaches and players, and connect with guys. That's what Chuck Noll did. That's what Bill Cowher did. That's what Mike Tomlin did. And if you're 3 for 3, why would you change your stripes? And do something completely different? That's who they're looking for in this coaching cycle. And again, it can be on the offensive side of the ball.
I think it's paramount that you get somebody that can walk into the room the first time and get guys to buy in. Because, hey, it may have been time for Tomlin to step away. Those guys 1 through 53 loved him and believed in him. And that's not an easy thing. Shoot, man, it's not an easy thing in like a radio transition. Like Josh Getzoff, I'm sure, had a tough time filling in or taking over for the great Mike Lang. That's not an easy thing to do. I think the next guy's got to be able to command a room. And ideally, if he's a great schematic genius, that's awesome. But I'm in full agreement with you. Like, you got to be a guy.
Yeah, I agree. Here's the thing, man. Like, when Mike came in, remember Mike asserted himself quickly by ramping up the training camp schedule. Yep. He said, we're gonna practice more. We're gonna practice harder. We're gonna do more 2-a-days. We're gonna be more physical. And like at the end of the first season, they were like, Coach, you kind of wore us down a bit there. And he was like, okay, we'll peel it back. But there was this sense that, hey, he established who he was, and people were like, okay, this guy's for real. He's demanding a lot of us. So if we want to keep our jobs, we're gonna go with that. And I think that that Mike Tomlin, he adapted different things. He started the 7 shots drill where they do that because he wanted to ramp up competition, and I think a lot of games were won that in his time, and because he has all those 1-score win games because they were so good at ramping up a competition, and when games were tight, they'd be ready for those moments. You need a guy that comes in and establishes his own thing, whatever it is. If it's 12 shots, if it's 3 a day, you can't legally do 3 a days, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
Whoever they're picking comes in and says, hey, this is what I'm doing, and if you ain't part of this, get out. And I think that's just whoever they find, that's that. And I think it's going to be interesting, whoever they hire, what will be the priority in that. And also, with the report, my colleague Jerry Dulac pointing out that the Steelers have informed all the assistant coaches, hey, you're free to look for whatever you want, but you're only sticking around if the new head coach wants you. I think it would be wise to keep some of the guys around who have been, integral to the culture. And I also done a great job raising up guys like, I think of Denzel Martin, who, how many edge rushers that have come through there now are talented? All 4 of them. You look at TJ Watt, that's his guy. You look at Alex Highsmith, his guy. Nick Herbig, his guy. And heck, Jack Sawyer had a heck of a rookie season.
Yes, he did.
So I might be like, hey, Denzel, and he was the guy that led the turnover culture. Hey, why don't you stick around, man? Because you're part of what a lot of these guys identify with. We'll keep that here while we fix some other things or reestablish some things elsewhere too. So guys like him, Carl Dunbar on the D line. I think of Eddie Faulkner, Fredo on the offense. Those guys, I think, all had good track records and were developing good rooms. So but again, it's all what this new head coach wants. If this new head coach says, I need guys across the board that understand what I'm doing, the organization got to roll with that.
You didn't say anything there that I could disagree with. I want the head coach to have full autonomy of what he does with his staff. I think that's how you have your most success, but I also wouldn't rule out, were I the new guy, of listening to the players and saying, hey,
right,
what do you need to keep you comfortable as we make this transition? By the way, 12 shots, that was my own personal training camp regimen at Sharky's, but we need not get into that. Chris Carter joining us on the Fan Morning Show, brought to you by Guardian Protection, your hometown home and business security company. Just how good are the bones of this Steelers roster, in your opinion, Chris? Because it seems like a lot of the national talking heads think this roster sucks. I don't see it that way. I think you've got at 3 of your offensive linemen for sure figured out. I think Joey Porter Jr. took a significant step forward this year to elite status. You've got the edge rushers. You've got Harmon. You've got Y.A. Black. I know Metcalf had the drop and the whole fan incident, but that's a good player to build around. I'm not looking at this as if it's like the Titans roster or something like that.
No.
I don't think it's bad. I think you could, with a good offseason and with the right hire, I think you could hit the ground running here. I really do.
I think you really could too. You look at the Steelers and how they've and how they've been building things, and that's the thing, is that Mike Tomlin's not leaving this team with nothing. They have an offensive line that is young, that is talented, and it has guys across the board that you're like, okay, we can lean on these guys. And you have a defensive line that now has at least 3 guys that I think that you could say could be part of the future in Derek Harmon, Keanu Benton, and Y.A. Black. You brought up Joey Porter Jr., fantastic year. He's my priority as far as re-signing.
Yes.
If I'm Omar Khan, my first job is to make sure that guy is here for the next 5 to 6 years at least. Because the way that he hasn't allowed a touchdown in 2 plus seasons since he became a starter. His only touchdown that he's tagged with, when you look at the advanced stats, is one that he gave up before he became a starter in his rookie season. That's how good this guy has been. So, and he's gotten better. He's more sharp. And there's other guys too. Patrick Queen is 26 years old. And he's flying all over the field, doing a lot of things, gluing the defense together. There's a lot of pieces here. You brought up DK Metcalf, Jalen Warren. If they sign Kenneth Gainwell, both of those guys good running backs in their 20s. They got Caleb Johnson who can learn behind them. He doesn't have to step up right away. You're right. There are bones here. Now, is it the same bones that Mike Tomlin was left with? No. They don't have their franchise quarterback in store, but that's fine. And I'm with you. This team can, and I think should, try to hit the ground running. I know there's some people out there that's like, oh, it'll be okay if the Steelers go and they have a really bad season because they need that to get their quarterback. But Adam, can you think of the last 7 winners of the NFL MVP award? It's 4 guys spread across those years: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and crazy enough, Aaron Rodgers. He got it twice in that span.
Trade up, and then late first round pick.
Well, what's saying here, all 4 of the teams that drafted those guys were in the playoffs the year before they drafted them. All of them had, like you said, they traded up to get them, or they waited for their spot. It is not impossible. In fact, a lot of teams don't have to tank to get there, and that's where I see this being a thing where the Steelers need to keep winning. And you know what? Hey, this year don't look like the quarterback year. We were wondering, a lot of the guys that were maybe positioned to be in this year, they're pushing to next year. If next year's that year and they got to trade up, they got to go trade up. They got to go be aggressive and do that like the Chiefs did for Mahomes. They were the 2 seed in the playoffs when they did that. Like the Bills when they were a wild card team, they traded up for Allen. The Ravens kind of fell into Lamar Jackson in the later part of the first round, and Aaron Rodgers fell on the board. But that's what you want. You want a quarterback heavy draft where you have guys like, I like Jaden Mayava out of USC. If he's coming out next year, he's someone I'm looking really hard at, who might not be a top 3 pick, but could be a top 10 pick, and that's the safer range to trade into. So to the point being, I think the Bones are here to keep this a competitive team, but they got to choose carefully. They got to find a leader that connects with players and coaches. I know some people want the authoritarian because that's the only way to coach. Those days are pretty much gone. There's guys you challenge your coach, but look at Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel's headbutting his boys in the Patriots, getting bleeding out of his nose because he's their guy. That's what today's coaches are more like. Sean McVay is a very, very similar, those guys will die for him, but he's not in there, being Vince Lombardi saying, I'll cut you if you want a raise or something like that. Those days are gone.
I said a lot of what you said in a different way yesterday, Chris. Like Sam Darnold, these are the quarterbacks that are still playing. Some of them, Sam, because you've already touched on a few. Sam Darnold, first round pick, but they acquired him in free agency. Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. Matthew Stafford was acquired via a trade for another first-round quarterback. Like, I think you need to be open to any possible avenue, and if that means the new guy's like, hey, we're going to take a step back to take a step forward, I'm okay with that. But that does not necessarily need to be the way this gets done. Chris, this was awesome. It always is, man. I appreciate it, and I doubt that next time we talk they'll have a head coach, but I'd say it's possible, so looking forward to it, buddy.
Absolutely. Every day has been really fun to kind of just see who they're bringing in, and keep researching the names. I'm like, I know that name, but let me see who they have connections with. How about this? You see the connections that they're trying to build right now. I think that the Steelers, with all the defensive minds, there could be something there that does say, hey, we want to follow the build of Bill Cowher, Chuck Noll, Mike Tomlin, defensive assistant rising to that. Certainly going to be interesting.
Yes, it is. Chris, you're the man. We'll talk to you next week, buddy.
See you guys.
Thanks a million. Chris Carter of the Post-Gazette and the Locked On Steelers podcast.